Join in. Call Aaron anytime at 514-790-0991 or Star Talk.
Welcome back, 3:35 on a Wednesday afternoon. Sandra Reich is here. We talk on a fairly regular basis about anxiety and depression. She's the clinical director of the Montreal Anxiety and Depression Center. And Sandra, welcome back. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
It's interesting because you sort of always find something different to talk about. Contextually, times of the year never would strike me as something, well, I shouldn't say that because, I've heard about SAD, right, seasonally affected disorder. Different times of the year bring you sorts of different problems from people, and this is one of those times because it's about change, right?
Yeah. Well, we've just finished our summer, and we're going into the fall, and kids are going back to school, and we all have to adjust our schedules. That brings up a lot of stuff for people. We're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
We don't like when change comes, but we need change also. We also get bored if we don't change anything. But people tend to get very stressed at this time of year.
And we tend to think, when you say back to school, we tend to think kids, because, of course, for them, it's the big thing. It's in a new school, new neighborhood, maybe friends or whatever. But parents, obviously, that's a change for them, too.
Big change. You start having to do the pickups and the homework and just making sure everything's in order. It's stressful. Change is stressful for people. We like things to stay the same, but the paradox is we don't really like things to stay the same. So we've got a bit of a dilemma because it can be about this time of year, it can be about anything. We don't like things to stay the same, but yet we like that warm bath water. So if we stay in the warm bath water, nothing changes.
You want to get out, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
What sort of thing do you deal with then? I mean, we're talking generally now about change. Can you be somewhat, specific in terms of people you've talked to or patients who've come to you with specific sort of problems this time of year?
Yeah, the walls are closing in on them. If they're taking their kids back to school, it's getting back into a routine. It's changing when you have to pick up the homework. There's a lot of pressures. Also, we haven't talked about that yet. There's a lot of pressures on kids these days. There's a lot of pressure on society in general. There's a lot of pressure on all of us. In any job, in any situation, there's more and more, especially the more we're connected with the internet, with the phones, with whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of demands on our plate. The more demands there are, the more the walls start closing, the more we start to feel like I can't breathe. But there is a solution because no matter what's going on in your life, you still have to take time for self-care. And a lot of us don't. It's very easy to get caught up in the rat race. Many years ago, I heard an expression by Lily Tomlin. She said, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat, which is a great expression. We have to be careful that we don't get too caught up into that scene.
So, and it's always when you come on and we talk about this, it's always about, yes, there's a way to treat it. You don't have to sort of, take this upon yourself and think, oh, I'm stuck with this for the next 6 months or year, whatever else it is. You can treat it. So what's the first step in doing it?
Well, it depends on which route you want to go, but obviously, ideally, you seek professional help because it's really hard to know what to do when it's you. The natural tendency when you're stressed is to avoid the stress. And the more you avoid stress, the more the anxiety increases. Right. So you sort of need someone to help you through it. And unfortunately, loved ones are not ideal.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking in my own mind, if you get into a situation like this where you're now dealing with something brand new or it's a huge change, you look at other people doing the same thing and then your peer pressure kicks in. You're saying, well, they seem to be handling it okay, or they're all right with this, but I'm not.
Right.
Makes it even worse.
That's a really good point because I call that the Facebook phenomena. We only put pictures of us on Facebook about our happy times,
right,
but we don't put what's really going on for us. So when we do that comparison study, everybody seems calm, but that doesn't mean they're calm at all. It's just we all have our public persona and what's going on internally. So that's one strategy. It's a really good point that you make because we really don't want to do that comparison thing. That also adds to the stress.
Yeah, that's like asking someone else, say, how do you do it? And they tell you how, and you're sitting there going, oh, and realize you could never do that for whatever the reason is.
Right.
So let's do what we always do when you're here. Part of this issue, and it's something you always say, is saying, okay, if you're dealing with some anxiety or dealing with some depression, the first thing you should do is talk about it, is get it out, is let someone know what it is, because the longer you keep it bottled in and the less time you spend dealing with it, the worse it's going to get.
Yes, exactly.
Let's throw it out there for you right now. 790-0991. Anxiety, depression, what are you dealing with? And Sandra will try to help you because as has happened in the past few times you've been here, I hear stuff I never would have imagined. Because you can only, it's all about context, right? In my life, I could never think about something like this, so it's hard to imagine someone else could have a problem with this.
Yeah.
We all have our own issues.
Yes.
But hearing someone else is always... It's eye-opening, number one. And it's interesting to see that, you haven't had a case yet where someone has called and you say, well, I don't know what to do. I can't help you.
Right.
That's never the case, is it?
No, that's really good news. I'm glad people are hearing that. There's really no case like that. The thing about problems in life is there's always someone who had the same problem. So therefore, there's always something we can do about it. And you've heard a lot of things since I've been on of strange things, but it all comes from the same root. So we just have to go back to the root.
Okay, and again, this is a matter of, and it may not happen in one phone call, or it may not happen in one session, but if you work with someone, you can pretty much get rid of any fear or anxiety they have.
Yes. I do want to mention to you, and I think it's important that people hear this, is your anxiety response is the most adaptive response in your body. You need that response because if someone was about to kill you, you need to go into a sympathetic nervous response, which is to be hypervigilant and be aware of your surroundings and get prepared for battle. The problem is we get false alarms. We're not in danger, but our brain thinks we're in danger. Those kids going back to school, can I pay my bills? It feels like a saber-toothed tiger, but it's not.
Let's take a call here. This is Alexandra calling from NDG right now. Alexandra, go ahead. What's your question for Sandra?
Hi, how are you? My question is, my husband is scared of flying. He's never been on a flight. He's also scared of elevators and like closed environments. But we finally booked our first trip for October, and I just want to make sure. I don't know. Is there anything I can do? We have also pills to give him if should he need them. But is there anything I can do to prepare him? I don't know, to make this easier on him.
I think it would be a good idea to prepare him. I think that
She sounds like she's asking if there's a big bottle of booze she can buy to get him drunk before he gets on the plane. But
that actually works as a short-term
Does it?
solution, but leads to all sorts of other problems. So definitely not the route we want to go, although people do it all the time. I think the pills also, again, are a short-term solution, but if we can teach him to relax his body, and there's many ways. So I talked before about something called the sympathetic nervous system, which is when we're fight or flight response, which is what happens when we're anxious. But there's really good news. There's an opposing nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system. So we don't really need the jargon, but we need to know that if we turn on that system, we go into a calm state. So if he could learn some relaxation techniques with somebody, that would make a tremendous difference. And also preparing himself for the flight, preparing himself, what is it about it? It's the lack of control, most likely, that's setting him off. Am I right?
It's that he can't get out if he wants to.
Yeah. So that feels like things are out of control. So there's also what do you do with that? What's the fear? What could happen? There's one major what if in life. It's what if I die? That's the only what if, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's the fear, though.
The fear is he can't get out, but why would he need to get out?
Because he wants, I guess, control, because he wants to. Same thing on bridges. If we're stuck in traffic on a bridge, forget it. We almost have to switch. Like, I have to start driving. Or elevators or any...
Yeah. But that's, it's interesting you say that. It's this fear of death. That's really the one overriding fear, right? I mean, if you're stuck on a bridge, you're thinking, oh my God, the bridge is going to collapse. I'm going to fall off the bridge and die.
Yeah. That's
the ultimate sort of payoff in this for someone who has that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, be it on a plane, be it on an elevator, be it on a bridge.
Yeah, but we work with statistical probability. What's the chance that you're going to die on a bridge? So you want to go back to, this is uncomfortable, but discomfort is not dangerous. I think it's important people realize it. Being uncomfortable is not dangerous. It's just uncomfortable. So he won't like being enclosed, but he can survive this. And the more he understands that, the safer this journey will be for him psychologically.
Can I ask how you finally got him to go ahead and go on this trip?
I spent his money. I booked it, so now he has no choice but to get on.
Because it would cost the money to cancel it.
No, I got the insurance, but I didn't tell him.
Oh, good. Well, let's hope he's not listening. All right. Alexandra, thank you. I appreciate the call. Interested, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll take some more calls. We're going to be here for a little while. So if you have an issue you want to deal with, an anxiety issue, a depression issue, Sandra's here to help. Sandra Reich from the Montreal Anxiety and Depression Center. And by the way, let's talk about the center as well. For people who maybe want to do this privately and would like to get more information, how do they contact you and what are you doing at the clinic?
Okay. The website's always good, which is www.helpforanxietydepression.com, or you can call us at 514-777-4530. And what I think people should know is there's always a fear of therapy being expensive. Individual therapy does cost, but we have lots of other things. We have groups, we have free talks on a very regular basis. So call us. There's lots of things you can do that will cost you nothing or next to nothing.
All right. Take more of your calls at 790-0991.
This is the Aaron Rand Show on CJAD 800.
348. Welcome back. Sandra Reich from the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression taking your calls. And by the way, just to get back to the woman who called about her husband being afraid of flying and now she finally convinced him to go. She bought the tickets. You did want to mention something because there's a difference between calming someone down and then calming them down too much.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the journey between comfort zone, avoiding the flights, to moving towards too much of a stretch. So you want to, when there's something you're afraid of, you want to move from small incremental steps. So I was recommending learning breathing techniques and working with someone to learn breathing techniques, or something where he can start to visualize this flight. Because when you go from a state of comfort zone into something that terrifies you, unfortunately, there's a rebound effect. They're likely to jump back to comfort zone. So I don't want him to go on the plane and then never go on the plane again.
Right. So there are things you can do. You just have to go in small steps.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's take another call. George is calling from Laval. George, go ahead. What's your question for Sandra?
How's it going, Sandra?
Hi.
My issue is with my 17-year-old boy, which takes Ritalin, and I find that towards the end of the day, when the effect is the least, whenever a difficult situation arises, he becomes very anxious and like makes it like completely out of control, and refuses to go to therapy. So I don't know how to deal with that.
Here's the big question. Are there consequences for his behavior?
Yes, they are.
What are the consequences?
Well, he would lose his privileges, so he would lose his computer, he would lose his phone. But it's so out of control that at that moment, there's no talking to him, like crying, a 17-year-old crying and so forth,
He's 17.
Yes.
He doesn't care if he loses his privileges?
No, not so much.
Okay.
Not so much.
Okay, you got to find a different consequence, because there's always something that people care about, always. And the thing is, your hope is that he goes to therapy to help with his anxiety, and our hope is that he arrives at a desire. Is he working with someone he feels comfortable with?
No, he's not. He's not seeing anybody right now. He used to when he was 12.
Okay.
But right now with nobody. He refuses to go to therapy.
Okay, what's his reasoning for not wanting to go to therapy?
No reason.
Okay.
Just doesn't want to go. No reason.
Okay. Well, sometimes it's about getting somebody to the first appointment, and maybe an angle you could take is that the family needs to deal with this situation and you can all go together. That tends to work to get someone in. And I'm telling you that if you meet the right therapist and your son connects with that therapist, you're not going to have a problem. The other sidebar is if it's interfering with the family and he's not willing to do something about it, then the consequence has to be uncomfortable enough that he will rethink his position. It's like anything else. If there's no consequences for going through a stop sign, we're all going to go through stop signs. There has to be a consequence. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Just it's hard to find consequences. What do I do? Not feed him?
No. And this is the number one question I get asked about these consequences. And the number one consequence, people always say to me, what am I supposed to do? Divorce my husband? What am I supposed to do? The biggest consequence we have is ourselves. So you have a relationship with your son, and there's things you do for your son that mean something to him. If he's not being respectful to something that means something to you, then those things need to be pulled away. But you have to get comfortable with that, because sometimes parents are very uncomfortable with that, because it affects the homeostasis of the family. There's going to be tension. But you know what? A little tension can move things to the next level. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right. Thank you for your call, George. I'm curious, this is something he said, this whole idea of, well, why doesn't he want to go? I don't know. He just doesn't want to go. There's a reason, clearly. He's just not enunciating the reason. There's a reason he's not doing that either, right?
Right. He's scared. He's scared. This is one of the reasons I've so appreciated coming on, is there's still so much stigma that it's a sign of weakness to go to therapy. It is not a sign of weakness to go to therapy. It is a sign of strength. This is a person who says there's something in my life that's causing me a problem and I want to do something about that. Is that not admirable? You tell me.
How do you convince a 17-year-old, though?
Well, I think that, again, with a 17-year-old, you often need to bring in the family so he doesn't feel the whole focus is on him. This is impacting the whole family,
Right.
clearly. So you want to get sort of destigmatized therapy. When you come in with the right therapist, it's not that, movie, like lie on the couch and it's going to be this
Right.
horrible experience. Not at all. It doesn't have to be that way.
That's what they have to convey to him, that it doesn't have to turn out that way.
No, and I also try things as saying, like, try one session. If you
Right.
don't like it, we'll
We don't have
renegotiate
to-
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peter from downtown. Peter, go ahead. What's your question for Sandra?
Hi.
Hey.
Okay. Okay, listen to this. I'm 73 years old.
Okay.
I worked all my life, and now I live alone, and I'm bored and everything. But what bugs me is every morning when I wake up, I get this anxiety feeling in my stomach. And I have to take 1 milligram of Ativan
Okay.
in order to settle that down.
Right.
But I don't. I hate it, the Ativan.
Yeah.
What can I do naturally with my mind?
Well, we have to look at when you wake up, that feeling in the stomach, which doesn't sound good to me at all. That's very unpleasant. What is going on? We have to be curious. We have to be detectives. What do you think is the thought that's coming into your head before you get the feeling? Because thoughts arrive
I
before
have
feelings.
very bad dreams, so I must tell you that.
Okay, what are the
which
dreams
I
about?
never had before.
What are they about?
Oh, they're all about things I don't even know about,
Okay.
like strange places, and they're all in colors and everything. I'm not being funny here now.
No,
you know?
I know. So when you wake up, though, the dream is over, so you're able to say to yourself, that was a dream. Is there another thought like, oh my God, I'm going to have the bad feeling today? Is there such a thought?
No, I don't think about that.
What do you think
I
about?
just tell to myself, forget the dream and get up and do your business.
Okay, so you don't really have a thought, then you have the feeling in the stomach, and then what's the next thought?
Well, after I take one Ativan or a chip,
Okay.
1 milligram.
Okay, well, let's go one step before the Ativan. Before you take the Ativan, you're having an uncomfortable feeling in your stomach,
Yes.
and you're saying something to yourself such
And
as,
my gut. Yeah.
this is uncomfortable, I don't like this. Right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so my question to you is, could you possibly say to yourself, this is uncomfortable, but this is likely to pass?
That's what I try to do all the time.
Okay, the thing is, although Ativan is an effective medication, the moment you take the Ativan, you're subscribing to the fact that it is not going to pass without the medication.
Oh, I feel like I'm relying on it.
Yes, you are, because the brain is associative, and the brain says, okay, I'm going to be better once I take the Ativan. And Ativan in particular is a drug that unfortunately fosters dependency, so it's not an ideal solution for this problem.
It's a downer, isn't it?
It is a downer, and it's addictive.
All right, Peter, I wish we had more time, but again, if you want to follow up on this.
And thank you, madame.
Oh, my
You're very
pleasure.
welcome. And Peter, if you want to follow up on this, the Montreal Center that Sandra is at, which is for depression and anxiety, you can certainly give them a call. This is something I guess you could deal with, on a longer basis, because it's kind of hard to do this inside of 60 seconds. But
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but it's very treatable again and works fast.
Give everyone the web address again, Sandra.
Okay, it's www.helpforanxietydepression.com, and our number is 514-777-4530.
777-4530. Sandra, thanks again for coming by, as always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your calls. Thank you as well. I wish we had more time to talk.